I believe health to be the highest version of life.
Hello, and welcome aboard another episode of the Captain's Lifestyle Podcast. This is your captain speaking, Taylor Morgan. On today's episode, we have another special guest. His name is Matt Mancz. Matt is a human performance coach, massage therapist, lead master health coach at 023 Holistic Systems, as well as a podcast host of From Sun to Soul, a show streaming the most vital voices speaking of a shared theme, which is seeking high levels of human performance while reconnecting to health, to harmony, and to Mother Nature. Matt has been in the performance coaching space for over 10 years, beginning his career as the head strength and conditioning coach for Syracuse men's and women's lacrosse and as an assistant for Syracuse football. In 2018, Matt decided to launch himself into a new profession, holistic health and massage therapy, recently completing his degree in occupational studies and traditional Chinese medicine. Matt uses his experience coaching elite athletes and his complementary yin-yang approach to generate a unique three-headed monster of athletic performance, bodywork, massage therapy, and high-level holistic health coaching. Matt, welcome to the show, man.
I'm pumped to be here. That's some intro, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and but right before we press record, I was shirtless. This is one of the interviews I'm going to do shirtless, and I was doing some homework on you, and I know you're always shirtless on your Instagram, and watching a few of your interviews that you've done in the past, and you were shirtless in those, and I was like, okay, I'm betting he's going to be shirtless and outside. And then you had a shirt on and you're inside. I was like, what happened?
Yeah, that's funny because I spent about 6 hours outdoors today. So I got my fix, and I figured I'd put a shirt on and come indoors to record the podcast, but I ripped it off and now we're both shirtless here. We're good to go.
Yeah. So let me start this off with a silly question. Did you watch the sunrise this morning?
Oh yeah, I got it in. I did my whole routine, and when the sun sets, I'm going to start my other routine.
Yeah. So let's start there. Let's talk a little bit about that. And there's such a wide range of where we could go in this one specific topic, but let's start with the sunrise. Why is watching the sunrise first thing in the morning so vital to not only health, but happiness and productivity as well?
Yeah, that's awesome. And the sunrise itself, it's like the beginning of it all. I see the day in almost in a way, it's like a mini song, right? It's like a mini bit. And when the song begins, right, that's the sun rising. And we sometimes, if we're not in that environment where we're exposing our skin and our eyeballs to that sunrise, we're missing the bit a little bit. We're coming in like scene 5 as opposed to the first scene of the night, so, or the day, to be more accurate. So these are signals that our bodies need to be living in a harmonious way and for health to really be optimized. So starting your day with that sunrise and then ending your day with the sunset, and then everything in between should be yoked to this passage of time and to this passage of light. So very crucial. And we'll talk quite a bit about this, how it really relates to your circadian biology, which determines a shit ton of your other biology, but it's extremely important.
Yeah. So let's get into some of those benefits that the morning sun specifically has.
Yeah. So, as we operate throughout the day, I use the word crescendo, right? So as we begin our day, it should be this light unfolding. It should be this medium to moderate to large expansion of activity, neural activity, chemical activity all throughout our cells and the communication networks there. And, that's, again, when we receive that morning light, it's starting all these systems to begin going, right? And the two main drivers of this crescendo and this rise of awakeness is the relationship between cortisol and melatonin. And cortisol, as we are designed to begin our day, is this light influx. It's this increase of cortisol activity throughout our cells that give our body the necessary signals that, okay, it's time to start moving. It's time to start getting up, walking around, thinking thoughts and progressing in whatever work that is for us. And we want that signal to be matched as close as possible to the signal of the sunrise. And again, that then the song that is occurring in the environment, and us as this being, if you will, is connected. It is harmoniously operating. And then inversely, the same relationship flips, where at night you want to be closing your day relatively close to the sunset, which then the cortisol should decrease, and then your melatonin stores should be then released. The morning sun actually would also amplify your melatonin stores. So it's almost like a sponge, like soaking up water throughout the day. And then when that sun sets, that melatonin that's built up actually gets squeezed out into your body. And through that rise of melatonin levels, we begin to feel sleepy, and then we can get to bed on time and sleep throughout the night.
Yeah. So people hear cortisol and they're like, whoa, like I don't want my cortisol to be high in the morning, because it's like demonized by, mainstream media. Like, oh, this causes high cortisol, like reduce your cortisol. Cortisol itself is not bad. In fact, if you don't have cortisol, you're going to die. It's about when you have cortisol. And unfortunately, in modern society, it's almost reversed. Low cortisol in the morning, high cortisol in the evening. And what you're saying is the exact opposite of that, right?
Exactly.
So how can we live in more accordance with our body's natural circadian rhythm? And it's not just the cortisol, it's the melatonin.
Oh yeah, it's all of it. It's all of it. And to pinpoint these two, it's a great place to start, because they have strong influences on all our levels of awakeness and tiredness. And again, like you said, Dunkin' Donuts has a slogan for a reason. It's America runs on Dunkin'. It's like they're preying on this situation that we're all in, not all us, but majority of individuals that it's so hard to begin their day. They're willing themselves out of bed. They're willing to get moving. Their body is stiff. Their mind is like still in yesterday. It's not present here in the moment.
Foggy.
Right. Exactly. So this gentle rise, this gentle expansion and release, it's more of a natural high. It's like a natural buzz. It's not a super roller coaster of acceleration to begin your day. It's more of a consistent grade that begins to be released, and that's the feelings that you can start to recognize when you're more living in accordance with these natural beginning times of the day that the sun will rise, and then the natural setting times that the sun will set. And this, as we can observe, changes throughout the calendar year, which is quite difficult if you have the same exact start time for work throughout all months, regardless if it's winter or it's summer. It is challenging. So you can be creative, but you can also have a standard that I think people should also set for themselves. Like, hey, this is how important I believe my health to be, and there's certain things that I can do in the summer that I may not really feel as necessary to do in the winter.
So do you think we as humans need less sleep in the summer because there's more daylight than in the winter?
I would say yes, less amount of sleep, but still very high quality sleep, right?
Right.
So as we all know, if we're consistently connected to the outdoors, we have an abundance of energy in the summer. It's like you're like the Energizer Bunny. And even when the sun does set at 8:45, 9 o'clock, you can still kind of be buzzing around till maybe 10:30, not in a disadvantageous way, but just because that you're still only an hour or 90 minutes removed from when the sun set. That's completely different, obviously, in the wintertime. So yes, I do believe we need less amount of rest and amount of sleep in the summertime, and vice versa. In the winter, I think we should be honing in and really soaking as much of that as we can in the wintertime.
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons why I love being a lifestyle entrepreneur and I get to set my own schedule, because you should not wake up and go to bed at the same time for the entire year. Yes, it's important for each season to not go to bed at different times, Monday through Friday, and then sleeping on the weekends. That jacks up your circadian rhythm, which we can get into. But and I think that's one of the problems with the 9 to 5 society, is like the whole year is exactly the same. And then they get into this cycle of stress and anxiety in the evening, and then grogginess in the morning, relying on coffee to provide what they think is going to be a pick-me-up. But it really doesn't work like that. It could actually be making things worse.
Right. And I'm not the angel wings floating around here, the circadian ideal lifestyle. At one point I was training clients till 10 p.m. at night and then getting up at 4 in the morning and hopping on a commute to go start at 6 a.m. and completely, out of this rhythm and pushing through tiredness, pushing through the amount of not the appropriate amount of rest and recovery that I had. And it was like grinding. Eventually your body, your mind, your emotions, all these things start to communicate with you that something's up. And most oftentimes it's just, we're not resting enough in the winter time.
So how can people listening right now, how can they understand if they are living out of alignment with their circadian rhythm?
I mean, yeah, I would say that if you are waking up 2 hours past sunrise and you're still tired, that's it. That's a clear indicator that something's up. An hour, okay, like people kind of get moving a little bit. That's okay. In the summer, 5:30 when the sun rises, it's still early. But if if the alarm's going off at 7:45 and you're snoozing still till 8:30 and you still have trouble getting moving in the morning, you are way removed to this cyclical action such as this rhythm is.
That used to be me. So I know that feeling, especially back when I was in the Marine Corps. My sleep was so fucked up. And even back in high school, because I didn't know any of this stuff that I know now. Like I didn't have a clue what circadian rhythm was. And nobody was talking about that. Like I would say that I have sleep problems and it's like, okay, well, go get these sleeping pills. Because nobody's talking about the natural rhythm. And that's just crazy. Are you familiar with the 4 different chronotypes?
I've heard, but refresh me.
Okay, so chronotype, I'm not sure if Michael Bruce coined that term or if that's some other science term, but the 4 chronotypes are basically not everybody should be waking up at sunrise and going to bed at sunset. Although that is the majority of the population, it's about 50% of the population is what he defines as the bear chronotype, which is what the 9-to-5 society is based off of, that timing. The school system is based off of that. But there's other chronotypes, like the dolphin, for example, are the typical insomniacs. And wolves are like night owls who stay out later, wake up a little bit later. And then there's the lions who stay out just slightly later, but then still wake up early. These are the typical entrepreneurs, CEOs, high achievers, stuff like that. And for anybody listening right now, you can take a free test to see what your chronotype is on his site, thepowerofwinquiz.com. It's completely free. It gives you video explanations of how you should live in accordance with your circadian rhythm. Because if you're a dolphin or a wolf chronotype and you're being taught by this motivational Instagram account that you follow that you need to wake up at 4:30 a.m. But that's not, like, it's literally built into your genetics. If that's not how you're built and you're staying out, you're staying out till 11:30 and still trying to wake up at 4, like that's not going to work. So it shows you how to live in more accordance with that.
That's real cool. And I've had experience, I would say, working with the wide array of these types. And I've worked with night owls who are texting me at 11:45 at night, like with the crazy idea that I'm not even ready to answer. And I've had,
go to bed.
Yeah. Like, dude, get some rest, man. So it is real that people have these type of types and expressions.
And I think everybody listening, definitely please go take that test. Because especially my audience, entrepreneurs, a lot of them say that they're night owls and they can quote unquote get by on less sleep. But that's actually a very small percentage of the population. And, if you think you can get by on less sleep, it's about like 3% of the total population, probably even less than that, that has a mutation in the DEC2 gene, I believe it is, that if you have that mutation, it allows you to only get, it's like 6 hours and 25 minutes of sleep to be your get by level. But again, that's 3% or less of the population. So you probably don't have that. And if you think you do, go get your genetics tested and then interpret the data. You probably don't. So all that being said, for the majority of the population, what can we do to optimize our circadian rhythm?
I would say that it begins with what you do in the morning and what you do at night. These are, I term these as like the bookends to your day, right? And everything in between can resemble like a normal person, but you should have a high sense of awareness of how your day starts and how your day ends. And if there's things in your life that you have to protect yourself from, such as artificial light at night, that's a very important thing to begin to take serious. You know, my fiance and I, in our apartment here, we have some crazy dim lights, and as soon as the sun goes down, we're popping those on. And when people pass, you know, on our street and they see the red bulbs through our windows, it's we're the only house, I would say, in the entire town that you can observe that. But we have this level of awareness around how disruptive bright lights at night can be. We do some other things as well at the end of the night to really give our body and signify to our systems that the day is ending. You should be close to ending as well, from mental activity to certain types of conversations, even to physical movement. You know, all these things can slowly start to be streamlined down to the bare essential, and the pace at which you move around should start to slow as well. That's the book end to the day, and then the beginning should again resemble, you know, a bear that comes out of hibernation, like an unfolding. If possible, I have a little exercise that I recommend to people as well. It's called wake and bake, and it's an analogy that
wake up and smoke weed.
not if you want to begin in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
But biological alignment and kinesthetic exploration. So BAKE. So again, circadian biology. We're aligning our circadian biology to this timing sequence throughout the calendar year and to the day. But then we're also adding some light morning movement. So some kinesthetic exploration, which really gets the systems moving. So you have the photonic signal, which is the morning light. And then you have some skeletal movement going on as well, which is really going to start moving your systems going. Your digestive system should start to come online as well. Your respiratory system should start to be aligned as well. So all these things are great to do, again, that signify, okay, the day is starting. You should be starting as well. You don't want to be falling behind a little bit in this regard.
So what does the BAKE stand for? Was that an acronym?
Yeah,
I got the K. Did I miss the other ones?
BAKE. So biological alignment and kinesthetic exploration.
Okay. Gotcha.
You know, it's a little funny little term that I came up with, and I personally have been doing it for about 2 years now, and it is, you know, is now in a way it's unconscious. I roll out of bed, I walk right onto the deck, and I just do and every day is somewhat different. You know, that's the exploration component coming in. It's like some days my back needs to be opened up and I'm doing some modified yoga work. Sometimes it's just I'm sitting in a deep squat and I'm breathing. Every day is different, which allows the freedom to do so. But again, we're pairing this to, as soon as that, you know, or relatively close to when the sun comes up and the sun rises and your day starts to begin, this should be paired as well to keep everything online.
Yeah, I like that you call it kinesthetic exploration, because like in my morning ritual, I created what I call the Rituals of the Optimized Entrepreneur course. And it's just a video explanation going through modules of my morning ritual and my evening ritual. Because as you know, as we've been talking about, it's like the most important times of your day, the morning and the evening. And I created the term cages, and the E in that stands for exercise. But then I go on to explain that it's not the exercise that you're probably thinking of. It's not going to the gym first thing in the morning and getting an intense exercise, you know, routine in. So I like the term kinesthetic exploration a lot better, because it's just moving your body. Like you don't have to wake up and, you know, Jocko Willink and David Goggins style, like go kill yourself. Yeah. You gotta just move, get the lymphatic fluid flowing, jump on a rebounder, you know, do the yoga. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah, that's the action came before the acronym did, right? So I had this instinctual amount of communication with my body, and it varied every day. And then eventually I'm like, well, what am I? All right, I know I'm moving, right? I know I'm moving kinesthetically, but then what am I doing? You know, to define that, if you could describe it, it would be more of this bodily exploratory experience that, again, every day is different, and it compounded over time. When I'm ready to go train or even train somebody else, my body needs less time to warm up. I'm
Mhm.
constantly in this like neutral ready state throughout the day, which is a great place to be. And that's a product of what I do in the morning.
What would you recommend to people out there who don't have an extensive background in exercise and massage therapy? Because you are extremely in tune with your body. So you can wake up and notice which areas feel tight, what movements you should do. I'm guessing a lot of people listening right now, they might be thinking, I don't have that kind of body awareness to know that, okay, today I need to do this stretch. So what would you recommend to people listening?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up because sometimes I could go too high level and it goes over people's heads sometimes. And so I would begin with the breath and the positions
There you
in
go.
which you are uncomfortable in. That's exactly where you want to go, right?
Mhm.
So if the knees, okay, are a little stiff for some reason, and you wake up and you start your day, and you're sitting in a deep squat, and all of a sudden the breath gets real like sticky, hang in that position and breathe until that position becomes comfortable. And then all of a sudden you feel all this room, you feel all this comfortability, you feel more relaxed. And then you go into something else. What maybe it's now the left shoulder, it's a little creaky. Okay, get into a position that feels a little bit uncomfortable, moderately uncomfortable, not pain, but stiff.
Mhm.
Okay. And then breathe again. So constantly exploring, okay, what feels a little wonky, breathe. Keep breathing, mitigate that breath, deep inhales, belly, slow exhales, long extended exhales, and just continue with that pace. And all of a sudden things will start, I see it as like doors start to open up and you just continue to move on and on and on. And this, again, it develops this ability to have this language, if you will, right? This certain dialect that the body speaks, and then you can, listen, if you will, speak back, understand, and then just work with it. And the breath is like the bridge that you can develop and even cross, that allows your action and your awareness to then bridge into the body's natural intelligence, which is way more intelligent than we give it credit for.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the breath because as a CrossFit coach, I would always say, like, if you can't breathe in the position, you don't own the position.
Mm,
Because so many people try to, learn the snatch or do a handstand, and they're just like muscling it, like their faces are like, "Ugh," like just
yeah.
straining so hard. And it's like, okay, well, you're just muscling into that position. Like, you don't really own that position. So I love that you brought up the breath, being able to sit relaxed and breathe in each position.
And that's what massage therapy taught me, because if I'm a practitioner and I am working on a body and I'm not super chilled the F out, their body senses that as well. And then
Mm.
whatever I'm trying to do from a facilitation standpoint is not as efficacious as it could be, because they feel the tension that I have, and that's communicated to them as well. So I am now like, all right, I'm almost super tuned into the state of my nervous system at all times, or at least I aim to be. And how relaxed can I get in every single moment, regardless if it's perceived to be discomforting or stressful at times. It's like, okay, this is a place that maybe is a little bit challenging. How comfortable can I get in this place? And this is like a spectrum, a varying intensity, where you could, again, like the highest intensities are life or death, but wind that down a little bit, then you have an ice bath, for example, right? Kind of real uncomfortable, body doesn't like it. Tune into how you breathe, tune into the depth of how the breath, and like you said, can you own this position, can you own the place in which you're at, which is discomfort, and then let the breath and the body take care of it, and if you just be consistent in that way, all of a sudden you access more of a comfortable state. So that's similar things that definitely massage therapy really allowed me to access, from a standpoint of just breath and body awareness, linking the two, and doing the best I can to be as parasympathetic in most places.
Do you think you can live an optimal life without being uncomfortable?
Say that one more time.
Do you think you can live an optimal life without getting uncomfortable?
I would say absolutely not. I believe we are highly adaptable and survivable organisms that require that stimulus, that literally it's ingrained in our DNA to adapt to the uncomfortable. And if we don't have that stimuli and in our consistently in our daily regimes, what do? We de-evolve. We turn into a couch potato. We lose all this potential that we have as a human being. We're just missing absolutely what our potential could be if we're not having that certain amount of uncomfortable situation in our life. So I appreciate that. I completely agree with that.
And that is exactly what's happening. I think society, not everybody, of course, because there's people like us, and not that we're like the pinnacle of this, but I think the majority of people are trying to shy away from discomfort and get as far away from discomfort as possible and do everything in their power to make their lives comfy and cozy. You know, the typical day is waking up out of your comfy bed, getting a warm cup of coffee, you know, just relaxing a little bit, then getting into your climate controlled car, driving to work in the climate controlled office, sitting down all day, nice and cozy, eating the donuts that are left in the break room, coming home in the climate controlled car again, coming home, sitting on the couch, watching TV, just relaxing and just being comfortable all day. One of the reasons why I push cold showers so hard to everybody is because if you can do the one thing that 95% of the population is deathly afraid of and would avoid at all costs, if you can start your day with that, like imagine how big of a confidence boost that will give you. Like your self-esteem and like your what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like your ability to stick to things, whatever that's called. I'm blanking on it. That just goes through the roof. Yeah, I mean, we could go on a big tangent on that, but something that I forgot to ask at the beginning of this, which I probably should have started with, is why is living in accordance with your circadian rhythm so important? Like, what are the physical and mental effects that you'll actually feel if you're out of alignment with that? We kind of touched on some with the grogginess, but it goes much deeper than that.
Yeah, and when I try to explain this, I just go as simple as possible, and I just say, you know, there's representations that are ancient that are, I understand, as yin and yang, right? Yin and yang. And you have, you know, your yang day, your very active part of your day that needs to be balanced with its polar opposite expression, which is the yin. And, you know, sleep is yin for us. It's the most yin thing we do. We're literally moderately unconscious, you could argue, right? It's we're not even, you know, in a state that has, you know, everything that we have when we're awake. So that's kind of crazy to think about, but it is, again, it's the ultimate opposite of what we do during the day. And if we don't give it the necessary attention and priority and give our body the sleep that it needs to recover, we can get away with things when we're teens and when we're 20s and even in like your early 30s. You can continue to grind and continue to push, male or female. But something happens at, you know, maybe early 30s, mid 30s, 40s, even your body just starts to crash. You either get injured more, you can't handle everything because you're not rested enough to increase all this ability to from a bandwidth standpoint handle life. To be absolutely honest, it never gets easy. So you may not really feel these effects in your teens and 20s. You probably don't. I didn't. You probably didn't as well, right? I was a maniac in my 20s. Then things started to shift where I still was working the workload I was when I was in my early 20s as I was in my late 20s, but I didn't have like this pop. I didn't have the zest. I didn't have the zip. My potential as a coach and a trainer started to dip a little. I'm like, this ain't me. Like I'm a very pinpointed person when a task is in front of me that I'm confident with. I can really, really coach well. And I was starting to lose that sharpness. I was starting to lose it a little bit. I became a little bit more dull and dim, and again, not as effective as I was. And I started to read a little bit about, you know, light and health and sleep and circadian rhythm and a lot of the Jack Kruse stuff, early on stuff. I was like, wow, I am completely missing this in my life, completely. And that spurred the Circadian Man Instagram handle change. And it was like, okay, now I understand the magnitude of this. Now can I organize my life to resemble this large cycle? Can I, you know, understand its magnitude, but then live with this in accordance? So, you know, these are certain things that in reality, it's of giving you a sense of ultimate harmony and balance and living in rhythm, which again is a lot of what I speak about. But it's a perfect example, I think, that most people miss, that when they can start to at least employ in a better way in their life, things start to really handle themselves.
Yo, Taylor here. So I'm sure you've heard me harp on sleep and basically every single podcast and video that I put out because it truly is that important. And I'm excited to announce that I've created something very simple and very tactical that you guys can use to start improving your sleep immediately. In fact, it is the fastest way to improve the quality of your sleep and therefore the quality of your life with amazing results after just one single night of implementation. Seriously. This is the same nightly ritual that I personally use, and it's the same strategy that I teach all of my high-performing clients in the Captain's Lifestyle program. It's the 4-3-2-1-30 method, and I'm giving it away to you guys for free. All you have to do is follow the link in my Instagram bio or in the show notes of this podcast, and I'll send it over so you can start sleeping better tonight. But please do not sleep on this offer. It's literally free, so no excuses. Go do it. And sweet dreams. I want to push back a little bit on what you said of getting by in your teens and 20s, which I agree with. Yes, you can quote unquote get by. And if that's what you're looking to do, just get by all means, keep doing what you're doing. And you're right. Like I didn't notice it when I was sleep deprived and stressed out. I knew that my sleep wasn't good and then I was stressed, but I didn't really understand the full effects that was having, because that's just the way that I had lived my life. I just thought that that's the way it was. And especially in the Marine Corps, like it doesn't matter if you're sleep deprived or you don't feel like it. Like you got to fucking go right now. Like get the fuck up. But now, and I just heard this recently, I forget who said it, but the difference between peak performance and optimal performance. Peak performance is like the ultimate. It's like the pinnacle, the best you could possibly be operating, like full high quality sleep, perfect diet, amazing energy, like all that stuff. Optimal performance is doing the best you can with whatever situation you're in. So in the Marine Corps, I was never at peak performance. Like I was sleep deprived all the time, but there were times when I had to perform optimally. I think a lot of people think that they're achieving peak performance just because that they've never felt another way. So if you think that you're getting by on anything less than 7 hours of sleep, you're probably right. You probably are getting by, but imagine how much more you could be getting done and how much better you could feel if you got that extra sleep. Would you agree with that?
I would completely agree. And you know, I'm glad you bring that up, because that is a lot of why I continue to spread this style of life, is because eventually I see this as a necessity, even for the teens and for the 20s, because like you said, there's plenty of athletes out there that want to achieve peak performance in this regard, and they're most likely completely either unaware or way out of whack in this type of rhythm. And you know, these are things, again, like if you're literally striving for a place on a roster or a scholarship or playing time, and you're not resting as much as you can or should be, you know, your performance will start to reduce. So you know, again, I see this as a gigantic functional piece of a way of life that even teens and 20s should take as serious as we do.
Yeah. So that being said, now let's get into the difference between merely surviving through life and thriving. Talk a little bit about the difference between that.
Yeah, this is an 023 concept that, you know, we stand to. And you know, the tagline is normalize thriving. To really, you said it perfect, that people haven't really tasted what life could be at a certain level. They haven't really tasted it. They're not as sensitive to that. So they would be, you know, content with, you know, the 6-7 hours of sleep and the work that's okay and just doing enough at the gym, but then eventually crashing and whatnot. And you know, thriving is this exponential rise in your ability as a human. Okay. And, there's things that you can continuously do even as you age. Your body almost necessarily starts to defy its age and its number. And that's because your body is so tuned in ways. It's so regulated by its environment. It's so connected to its environment. It's highly adaptable at every single moment. It's always in this constant state of readiness. It can go up or down at any moment. And when it goes up, it can outperform 95% of the people that you're competing against. So that's living in like this state of thriving, this continuous cycle of readiness, this continuous cycle of again or at least close to your highest potential. It's extremely rare to find people that are in this state, right? And they would then be more accurately termed as surviving, just doing enough, just getting by. They're probably still performing as they age, but they were nowhere near to the levels at which they could. So really tuning this into and having this understanding and even this visual that whatever you are, you have a certain level of potential. And you want to ask yourself, like, what could you do if you took care of all these factors? If you were hyper aware of your body, if you fed it the right diet, if you lived in accordance with seasonal changes and light and dark, if you were tuned into your breath and handled your emotions and understood stress and discomfort as necessary, but had necessary skills to employ to help you understand these things. Like, what could you do then? And if you're taking care of these factors, you will eventually at least get closer to that. You might not figure it out, but you will be thriving. You will not necessarily just be getting by, surviving. You would be above average. You'd be above even that. You'd be, even in a top tier in whatever regard that is. If it's sports, athletics, entrepreneurialism, like all these things that require us to actualize our potential. So you want to be on that path and you want to be able to attain or get close to that.
Yeah. And then if you are surviving, that's when you come to people like us.
That's right.
And that's
right.
one of the reasons why I wanted to work with entrepreneurs, because I feel like they're almost like opposite of thriving. Like, it's just so focused on their business, which is good because I work with social entrepreneurs, people who are making a positive impact in the world. That's good. But in order to do that, you have to first take care of yourself and prioritize your own health, happiness, and productivity before you can make any sort of noticeable impact. So it's all about thriving.
Hell yeah.
I have a quote from one of your podcasts. I really like this one. So here it goes. Life is not supposed to be this slow decline of chronic soul-eating shitstorm. That was awesome. Kind of goes into what we were talking about a little bit, but expand on that briefly.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a mic drop, I guess. But this is, again, it's drawing a line in the sand and getting more clarity on, okay, where are we in relation to what we could be? And again, where we are as a totality is this just mediocre experience, not enough people understanding, that life could be lived at a more alive level. It's kind of an abstract way to use that, but again, this acceptance of just a chronic decline of life is like, I am so against that. I am like the dude who wants to be like, speeding into his grave and like halting to stop and like getting dumped out and like, all right, I see you later. That was a good ride right there. Like, that's the type of people that are usually making the most impact and positive change, and almost like creating a dent in whoever's lives that they surround themselves with. And they are, again, not this slow, decrepit decline in whatever life that they're living is literally eating their soul away. And they can literally feel that. They're actually the opposite. Everything they do lights their soul on fire. The level of which they can impact others is absolutely exponential. The literal changes that they're influencing others with is life changing, and that's this cascading, almost contagious agent of the opposite. It would be more of this man on fire. It would be this more almost this is another kind of word that I'm not afraid to use. It's like you're possessed, but in all good ways, right? You have this level of seeing and being and teaching and speaking that is like, it's unique. It's people gravitate to that because it's different. You're not the majority, the chronic soul eating lifestyle. It's actually the opposite. Your soul, you're fulfilling your soul, you're expressing your soul, you're letting this side of you that has every answer that you're ever going to need, you let it out. And then when you start to initiate that in certain circumstances, it's quite profound.
And that is why people think that we're the weirdos in the world.
100%, dude. 100%.
I think that'll start to change, though. I think more people are starting to wake up and understand that the past, I don't know, 100, yeah, probably not more than 100 years of our existence, we've been going in, the opposite direction of health.
Right.
Speaking of soul, I want you to dive into a little bit on the three different meanings of your new podcast, which is From Sun to Soul.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So I have an episode about this, but I'll give you the quick, elevator version. For me, again, I was not this person who was aligned with the sun and the circadian rhythm, and a man very disconnected from nature. And I just felt incomplete in so many ways. And when I really start to prioritize this way of life and can be connected and consistently connected to the sun and to the environment and to nature, and it showed me that I have to be oriented in this direction. I have to be led and guided by the sun, right? So from sun, me as a sun, but to soul, SOL. So the ancient representation of the sun itself. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm leading others to. That's where I'm there, right there. That's the North Star, if you will. And then also there's this a range of topics that I want to cover on my own personal show is from the amount of health that we can gain from living, and not shying away from the sun. But then also, on the other side of that is to the human soul, really the deepest entity that we possess, and getting people more connected to that version of themselves, because there's things in there that are so valuable that can guide you when you need to be guided. You just have to be willing and bold enough to open that door up a little bit and start to communicate with that version of yourself. And then lastly, it would be, my own personal journey into just that, into my own soul, which is often a freaking scary place to enter. But again, it has the treasure that you seek. You just got to be brave and bold and willing enough to go there. So
you got to clean the corners.
That's a mantra that'll never leave me right there. The cleaner your corners are, the more tidy, your life is and more organized. And then you have enough time, space, and energy, and even headspace and abilities to do this type of work. So if your corners are unkept, it'll manifest in ways that are quite evident in most people.
Yeah, you mentioned in the second definition of From Sun to Soul that one of your goals is to help people not shy away from the sun, which unfortunately in the media and news articles, there's all these, scare tactics like use your sunscreen, slather up in this toxic sludge of chemicals, and wear your sunglasses and don't go outside. So why are people afraid of the sun, and why should they not be?
I wish I had an answer as to why they are afraid of the sun. And you pretty much said it. There's the narrative has been askew, right? It's been manipulated in ways that if we just took a more of an evolutionary approach and relied more on, well, how did you get where you are today? You had ancestors, you had hunters and gatherers, you had people who lived off the land. They weren't hiding indoors. They weren't shying away. They entered the chaotic environment that is Mother Nature, and they put to work what needed to be worked on, and they survived. Because life was a little bit more tougher back then. There's more stuff on the line. You had to hunt your own food, grow your own food, depend on the land. They didn't have time to worry about sunscreen. They didn't even have anything. It was not on their radar that they have to protect themselves from something that is a part of this existence that we're all sharing, right? So I understand that, this can be seen as risky, if you will, as, being outdoors without sunscreen. It's more like, okay, well, how did our ancestors live? There's got to be some value in that. There's got to be an understanding that they may have used shade, which I recommend quite often. It's like, okay, you don't necessarily need sunscreen. Go outdoors and get your skin in the game, like Jack Cruz says. But then when you feel, you're burning, just hop in the shade, get a big hat, bring an umbrella to the beach, whatever it is. And then cycle between that, and your body will communicate with you if you're getting cooked or not. And then also the sunglass thing, like that's another thing that is manipulating the spectrum of light that is unnatural to our eyeballs and our supracosmatic nucleus that is, again, designed to have the full spectrum and the different rays at the morning and when the sun is setting. So that's another thing. Again, we did not necessarily have to evolve with sunglasses. So it's this evolutionary perspective that I always side on, and it's easy to communicate to most people that understand that we would not be here if we did not have our ancestors so adaptable, so survivable, so connected to the environment, and ultimately lived in this way. They seem to be okay, and that's the reason why we're here sharing this conversation.
The fear of the sun stems back to that, it can cause sun cancer, or not sun cancer, skin cancer, which it can, but that's only if you don't get your exposure properly. If you get outside, watch the sunrise without sunglasses, get as much skin exposure as you can from the morning sun, and then periodically throughout your day, expose yourself to the sun. So your body produces melanin, which is what protects you from the sun, which is it's how you get tan. That's the melanin production. Then your body knows that, okay, it's more sunny. Let's produce more melanin to protect ourselves from the sun. If you just go from the winter months into summer, pasty white, not ever going out in the sun, and you go to the beach for a vacation, like, yeah, you're going to get sunburnt.
You're going to get roasted.
So yeah, watch the sunrise, get out as much as possible in the sun. When you feel like you're getting burnt, go in the shade. If you do have to use sunscreen, please get a natural sunscreen. One, so you don't rub all those chemicals on your body, and two, so you don't destroy the reefs, because a lot of those sunscreens can help or contribute to the destruction of the coral reefs, which is unfortunate.
Hell yeah.
And sunscreen.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a term that a lot of the circadian nights use. It's called solar callus, meaning that the more consistent you are outdoors in the beginning of the day, again, from sunrise to about 11 a.m., the more consistent you are in that spectrum of light, you develop a thicker solar callus that you do not get burned. The sun is most intense, obviously, in the middle of the day. If you're going to be outdoors and be outdoors for an extended period of time, you want to be more in the windows of either early in the morning or later at night, because the sun is less intense, and that's also developing the solar callus. And if you are consistent, you'll be able to go on vacation in the Caribbean in the dead summer and probably not get as cooked as everyone else, because you have a thicker callus as well. And that's directly impacted by the timing at which you're outdoors.
Absolutely. And last thing on sunscreen is that's one of the big reasons why we're so vitamin D deficient, is because every time we do go out in the sun, we lather up in sunscreen, which blocks the UVA, UVB radiation. I forget which one specifically produces vitamin D, but that's why, the supplementation industry is so huge, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with vitamin D, although you should always try to get it naturally. And there's times of the year, like wintertime, especially, if you live in the northern states where that is more difficult, where you might need to supplement with vitamin D, depending on your lifestyle. But just getting rid of the sunscreen, getting rid of the sunglasses. Like, we don't need to shy away from it. Just get your sun exposure smartly.
There's a quote from Dr. Leland Stillman. I actually have him on my podcast coming out soon.
Wow. And I'll be looking forward to that one.
Yeah, he freaking crushes it. And he has a mic drop part of the show. And he said, the lack of sun causes more skin cancer than the sun itself.
Boom.
And that's like the mental flip upside down that everyone needs to hear, that not getting the sun is actually causing more skin cancer than you believe to be being caused by actually more sun itself. It's pretty wild to think about that.
Kind of off topic, but not really. What is your definition of health?
That's a freaking great question. I believe health to be the highest version of life, right?
Mm.
So again, like you observe nature. Nature doesn't use the word health, doesn't use any words, but it wouldn't even use the word health. It would show you what life is, and it would show you what exuberant life is. And there's less of a like an in between than we believe to be the case, right? We have like people, men and women who are like extremely healthy and living vibrant. Then we have these tweener people who are kind of just like we talked about, surviving, barely getting by. We also have a large amount of people who are stuck in chronic disease situations, which is incredibly a very big issue. Nature doesn't have this wide spectrum. It has exuberant explosions of high potential life, and then it really just has death and maybe a small fraction in between. This is, again, the cycle of how life operates. So if we are aiming at health, we have to understand what the F we're really aiming at, which is, again, this highest expression of life itself, which is operating with all these levels of accordance that we talked about. Not only the circadian rhythm, but the electrical connectedness to the environment. All these things that, again, are just so observable when you can start to really have a deep connection with nature. And actually, nature is like your main teacher. It's like that's your highest source of information is what you observe in the natural world, like, and then filter that through the published and peer reviewed and the sources such that we've put together. So again, I don't use the word health in conversations such as this. It's more like, okay, health, what we really believe health to be is actually life living at its highest potential. So again, taking notes from that, what principles can you really filter through as applicable to the human experience? Use those, and you will now be oriented in a direction that is resembling that life that you observe in nature.
Do you think that any quote unquote healthy human being can die from any sort of chronic disease or illness?
I don't believe so. I mean, again, this is kind of like diving into the belief of germ theory and terrain theory. And again, if you have a highly adaptable, highly survivable, highly potentiated, constantly ready organism that can handle stress, and that their body is super tuned into their environment, almost like ready to go at all times, there's many things that we're just knocking down unconsciously that would knock somebody else out if they didn't have this state, right? So I do believe, again, the more you take care of your body and the more you value health that we termed as life, you will be living longer and at such a higher potential than what you could even imagine.
Yeah, I agree. I say that all the time, and people send me things like, oh, look, this healthy person died from this virus that shall not be named. And then I respond and I say, okay, they weren't healthy. I know that the article says healthy male, age 35, whatever, but that's because Western medicine describes health as just the absence of illness and chronic disease. But as we know, just because you don't have any of those doesn't mean you're thriving. You might just be surviving,
Exactly.
That's not health.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And
go ahead.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
All right. I wanted to get into your tagline, one of your taglines, which is restore rhythm.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
That's a big one, man. That's like the gravitational center of everything that I orchestrate around is restore rhythm. And, when I started understanding and prioritizing circadian rhythm, it was like, okay, this is important. Like, I'm the circadian guy, takes his stuff seriously. I'm living in rhythm, all these things. And then I almost, again, got possessed, if you will, or hypnotized by the word rhythm. I was like, okay, if circadian rhythm is a rhythm, what other rhythms do we have? And this was a gigantic freaking opening, gaping rabbit hole that has sucked me into it that, has pulled me on a little bit of a ride here for the last couple of years. And again, really understanding that there's many, many, many levels of rhythm that we live in or live without or live in a collision with. And, a perfect example is the rhythm of our heartbeat, right? These are synchronized beats, if you will, that operate at a specific cadence and a specific observable pattern that are congruent in life, right? As you possess life, your heart continues to beat. It never really ever ends until you die. but then there's also the rhythm of the breath, right? And manipulating your breath to be more, again, congruent and harmonious, just it will, again, give you this outstanding ability to handle stress in certain situations. Your respiratory system becomes now linked to your digestive system. All these now systems underneath the surface are now tuned and operating at the same cadence again. So, and then it's more, there's so many things that are this, and I have this way to describe it, is this pendulation. It's this swing in both directions that is balanced, that's working together, that each swing has its own job, if you will. It has its own responsibility, that we necessarily need both. We need the pendulum to swing in one direction, and then it's got to swing in the opposite direction, and be balanced and be connected and be never ending. And, if we can just take that understanding and then just apply it to the rhythm of the heart, the rhythm of the breath, the rhythm of the body, the rhythm of the digestive system, the rhythm of the circadian rhythm, the rhythm of our mind even, and the disparity that we have to sometimes live in our head and be disconnected from our heart, which has its own, you could say, innate intelligence that can guide us and allow us to connect to others. So, again, the rhythm concept is again, it's moving through me as much as I'm moving with it. As crazy as that sounds, it's true. It started with circadian rhythm, and once I understood the magnitude of this process, this pattern, it started to really lead me to other rhythms and to prioritize them, to help people really understand them, and then live, again, more in accordance, more harmonious, more in rhythm. And you'd be amazed as to, even if you're, again, like a very physical person and you're living in the gym and you don't really move your body rhythmically, eventually you experience an injury or just a disinterest in training anymore. So it has this ability to be applicable in every situation, which is why it's, again, the center.
So you're saying everything is connected?
We could say that.
I thought it was just about, go to the gym and you're good, you're healthy.
There's an interconnectedness that we couldn't even understand as I believe to be really what's going on underneath the surface, which is fun because it allows us to continue to work towards a better understanding of our life and our ourselves and our role in this big dance as well. So yeah.
I don't even want to get into energy or anything like that, because that just goes way over my head. Like, I don't know even close to enough about it to have a intelligent conversation about that, but it's fascinating to understand just at the basic level, the concept of that. And I don't know. I don't want to go into that because that'll just blow my mind.
The only thing I say with energy is that we don't have an energy crisis. We have a disconnection crisis. We're not connected to real sources of energy, like the solar energy of the sun, like the electromagnetic frequencies of the earth. We're just not connected, which is why we're living in this low vibrational state, low energetic state. And we're, again, outsourcing this to what we believe to give us energy, when we really should understand that energy is not necessarily created or destroyed. It's just transferred. So if you can just understand how that, it starts to, again, be at least easier to employ in our lives, and then others, that we just can start to connect ourselves to more of these sources. And then things usually happen for the better.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Matt. Well, we're coming up on an hour here. I don't like to keep my podcast, or I don't like to have my podcast go much longer than that. So we'll keep it here, but we've only scratched the surface of a lot of things that I want to discuss. So we'll make this a 2-part episode. All right. So it'll be this one, and then we'll do a part 2.
Let's do it, baby. Two yin and yang, baby. I do 2 all the time.
Sweet. Briefly, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, best way to find me is on Instagram at Circadian_man. Hit me in the messages, and we can chat.
And then your podcast?
Podcast From Sun to Soul, available on all Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts. Just launched last month. So we're in the growth stage here. But a lot of the stuff that I've mentioned here on this podcast is in there, and then I plan on cover a shit ton more.
And that's from SON to SOL.
SON to SOL.
Boom. All right, Matt. Thanks for coming on.
All right. I appreciate it.